Mental health advocates are speaking out tonight about what may have caused shooter Adam Lanza to commit such an unbelievably violent act at that elementary school in Connecticut. KUSI's Bridget Naso has more tonight from a local mental health expert who wants to clear up the confusion about whether a syndrome on the autism spectrum known as Asperger's was to blame. Bridget?
Sandra, while Adam Lanza may have had Asperger's syndrome, mental health experts, including a local expert, say that it is simply not the case that the condition caused him to act out so violently. There were other factors at play here, important factors, and every parent should know what to look for. The question that's plagued the nation since last Friday's shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School: what caused Adam Lanza to kill brutally the most innocent of victims? Experts warn it can't be pinned to a mental health disorder, in particular Asperger's syndrome, which is on the autism spectrum, a condition the mother of the shooter said her son was diagnosed with.
What we do is we look for a set of behaviors that would spell the risk for any child, no matter whether or not they have a disorder.
Dr. Glenn Lipson is a forensic clinical psychologist and a professor at Alliant International University, and says rather than point to the abstract for an explanation to violence, look for the signs.
One of the things we don't want to do is to assume that if someone's mentally ill, they're going to be violent.
And experts say look for a couple of factors.
Part of what we look for is the relationship between what their fantasies are, because for some kids, fantasies then lead to action. Second, we look to see whether or not someone has a heart connection to others.
And without connections, it can be difficult, says Dr. Lipson, to separate reality from fantasy.
If you don't have a heart connection, you could be in your head, engaging in fantasies, these video games that they engage in, which then make it easier to think about killing people because they're more objects than real.
Another factor.
We also look for this fascination with weapons.
Put a lack of connection and a love of guns together and it can spell disaster.
You give any child a gun and they pretend to shoot it, they pretend to shoot bad guys, and then that leads to fantasies, and sometimes those fantasies lead to actions, especially if you don't have real connections to others.
And that is why parents need to pay attention, says Dr. Lipson. But in the case of Lanza,
we hear this child being described as being very alone.
The opposite of what experts say needs to happen.
There has to be more reaching out to parents who are struggling with children that have mental disease and illness. So it's important to bring in others who could see what's going on, to engage in prevention, to see these signs and intervene before someone gets hurt, or in this case, something tragic like all these murdered children.
Now, for many families, mental health services are covered by insurance. If you don't have insurance or you have questions, there's a good resource to start at. It's a website. It's the Mental Health America of California website. Sandra?
And Bridget, I think one issue for families is that there can be a stigma when it comes to mental illness, and that can prevent some people from getting help.
Yeah, it can be, sure, but the more we talk about it openly, about all these issues, the more we can hopefully reduce that stigma. And by supporting friends and family members when it comes to their mental health, hopefully we can change that and hopefully prevent terrible outcomes.
Yeah, getting the help they need. Thank you, Bridget.